Welcome to the E of Wonder podcast. Today I have Shaun Pennington, who is a phenomenal entrepreneur, successful entrepreneur, father, investor, inventor, and family man. He is the owner of three companies: Diamond Mattress, Hyphen Sleep, Lotus Properties, and also an inventor. He has 3 patents under his belt, along with 10 trademarks. He owns lots of real estate, 350,000 feet of industrial space, 75 residential units, and is an investor of many companies, including Penn Haven, Emmertech, XYZ Properties. Welcome to the E of Wonder podcast, Shaun.
Thanks, Clega. Great to be here.
So you're really interested in not only business, but also having people maximize their potential. Why did you get interested in that?
Well, I guess for me, it started in college. I was in college, I was studying business at the time and really had a hard time connecting with it. I had a hard time connecting with just economic theory and supply and demand. And at 19 years old, it's like, I don't really see how this all fits together. But I knew I was pretty unhappy. I'd gotten a girlfriend that I really liked, had broken up with me, and I was like sad about that and not feeling super great. And then I was looking around at my friends and family, and a lot of the wealthier people that I knew also didn't seem very happy. I was like, well, apparently the money isn't what it is because I see people have more money than I could imagine having and they're not happy. I'm like, I'm young and I'm not that happy right now. Like what is it that might lead to genuine happiness? Like what is it that makes a person genuinely happy? And that's when I started, studying religious studies and studying anthropology, looking at other traditions, religions, cultures, which ultimately drew me into Eastern meditation, Eastern wisdom traditions, as well as into like the Western wisdom traditions, the Catholic traditions, Father Lawrence Freeman and John Main and the Desert Father traditions, and just kind of started learning about what it is to recognize your potential and what it is to like train the mind ultimately. Because it definitely became clear to me that the mind was what was driving somebody's happiness or unhappiness.
A lot of times when people think that, oh, business owners into meditation, they think it's really woo woo. But this was really your foundation to grow your business and to be really successful. Tell us a little bit about that. How did, exploring these types of traditions lay a foundation for success?
I think for me, it's part of understanding what it is to be a human being and just having empathy for people, having compassion, being able to relate to them and to understand like that we're all here for the same, for the same reasons, really. We're here to live our lives, to service each other, to give back to our communities. And, as I traveled around the world, I traveled Southeast Asia and Vietnam, and like I recognized like the politics is never what it is. Like everywhere I went, I was like, these are all great people. They're just great human beings trying to live their lives. Having grown up in a society that kind of, had certain views on Russia or certain views on Vietnam, and then going there, you're like, well, the people are fantastic. So it must not be the people. The people just want to raise their families and live a good life. And so I think that it gave me a lot of empathy for people, which I think led to good leadership. And then I think the actual practices themselves have helped me keep balanced and focused. I kind of look back and sometimes I wonder like, well, what did meditation really do for me? Like, I'm not a Zen monk. I'm not like a, enlightened person. I'm like, and yet people tell me often like, wow, you handle so much stress and you're still happy. You still have a lot of energy, and, you take care of time, your family. So I guess the biggest thing it's done is it's given me more balance and helped me handle the daily stressors without feeling overwhelmed or feeling, upset about things or depressed or, just being able to keep more balance.
Well, it seems like you have a personal compass to your life. Is that true?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the personal compass is like, what is it made up of?
That's a great question. I mean, that personal compass, I've done the work with ACE coaching community as I trained to be a coach, and that helped a lot in terms of looking at our life intentions, looking at our standards of integrity, and being able to look clearly and say, well, what is really my core life intentions? To be a loving father and husband, to be a successful business leader, and to be physically fit and healthy. These are all some of the core life intentions that I guide me in my decision making. And then also just to think about our place in the world. I think our place in the universe, like what really matters here. I often tell people like it's all vapor. It's all going to be gone. It's just we're here. It's a passing moment. Somebody else is going to live in my house. Somebody else is going to drive my car. Like everything we have is for rent. And so when I look at it from that perspective, it brings more gratitude. And I look at the universe and say, if it's all energy, and if there is a God, which I believe that there is, he's omnipotent, omnipotent, and omnipresent. That means all places, all things, all time. It means he's here now with us. He's always here. By definition, God can't be separate from us because he's everywhere at once. And with that mindset, it's like it's all around us all the time. As long, if we have the eyes to see and the hearts to listen.
Yeah, I love that you're part of the ACE community. I love Dr. Maria Nemeth's work, and I also love her definition of success.
Yeah, to do what you said you were going to do with clarity, focus, ease, and grace.
Yes. And with that type of definition, anyone can be a success, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to judge yourself on success based off of comparison with others, you're doomed for a life of suffering. You're never going to get there, right? You're never going to live up to any external standards. So when you're able to create your own internal standards, that leads to a more fulfilled life.
Yes. Comparison is probably one of the biggest, monkey mind symptoms, that people have, comparing themselves with someone else. I'm not good enough, or overanalyzing. And when things like that happen, how do you, I guess, bring yourself back to, because it happens, right? Because we're human,
Oh yeah,
right?
all the
I mean,
time.
you have multiple businesses. So what do you do to reset?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because there's no one like silver bullet, right? There's no one magic potion, so to speak. I think it's having a tool set. It's kind of like, I always love the idea that Jesus was a carpenter, right? Because a carpenter has tools and they know how to use different tools given the project at the hand, right? So, at times it's, breathing, your breath connected to your heart, connected to your brain. So breathing alone can make a huge impact. Sometimes it's going for a walk. Sometimes it's earthing, just getting my feet on the earth and, connecting with the earth. There's a lot of science that shows that it helps reduce inflammation. It helps, your whole electrical system, your brain's electrical system helps ground you to the earth. Sometimes it's working with a coach. I love the coaches that I work with, and it's been hugely impactful for me to, sometimes you can't see your own blind spots. And when you're working with somebody, they can help you see those blind spots, and you've given you've empowered to help you with that. Then all of a sudden you can see them more clearly, and that brings up, increases our awareness. And as our awareness increases, that increases our choices. And as our choices increase, we can make different decisions, take different action that leads to feedback, and you create a feedback loop between awareness, choices, decisions, actions, results. And I think the whole goal of life in general is to increase our awareness and our capacity for awareness. So I think one of the biggest challenges is not recognizing when you're stuck in a pattern. And so having these different tools, these different resources, and the people in your life that help you see, gives you more of a vision of where you're at, and then helps you go forward.
Yeah, I think that idea of metacognition, really being aware of what's happening, is something and also having that ability, like you were saying, to reflect, is really so key. Another thing that I also know about you is that you really have this thirst for learning, this thirst for knowledge. What are some books that you really enjoy that you'd like to recommend to other entrepreneurs who are listening to this podcast?
Yeah. Oh, there's so many, like that whole, when you were saying learning, like the first thing that came to mind was Margaret Paul. I love her work. And one of the things she taught me was, love to learn, love to grow, love to get better. Right. And just we're always learning and growing. For me, I mean, one of my key books that I think helped me with all of our real estate purchases and our real estate growth was Rich Dad Poor Dad. Very like just key, foundational, easy read. Love Robert Kiyosaki's work and perspective, and just the motivation really behind it. As you go down that pathway, there's, a lot of other more technical books that you can read, but in terms of getting a grounding in like just the big picture and the motivation behind why you would grow a real estate portfolio, I felt like his book was fantastic. Other books, I mean, I love EOS, the traction book, when it comes to like how to run a process well, how to, organize your team, how to create team cohesion and accountability. Like Traction's a great book by Gino Wickman. There's the leadership fables that Patrick Lencioni has written, the five dysfunctions of a team, or, any of those his are really fantastic. I mean, the list can go on and on. I can look around me and just be like, hey, whoa, there's this one and there's that one. And there's so many.
How about some spiritual books?
Oh man. Gosh, again, there's a slew of them. I think, one of the ones that was really motivational for me early in my spiritual quest was the Celestine Prophecy. I've always loved spiritual adventure journeys. Like, just give me a spiritual adventure novel like that, and The Way of the Peaceful Warrior were just like inspiring books that just kind of were, fun to read and gave a vision, painted a vision for what could be, and then you get into books like Thich Nhat Hanh's work. There's a lot, there's so many different ones, but like the Miracle of Mindfulness was another one that was very practical, how to control your breathing, how to use awareness and mindfulness practice in very practical daily life. That one led me to spending time with his monastery in France. Living Buddha, Living Christ was another book that Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, which I love because it allowed me to see the comparisons between Buddha and Christ and the similarities in the stories and what they were teaching. So, that's just a few of many, books that I could say.
I love Thich Nhat Hanh. I also spent time in his monastery here in Escondido, California, and I love that you spent time in Plum Village because now that he's passed, you were able to actually experience that, which I think is phenomenal. One of the
Yeah.
favorite books that I like that he wrote is How to Fight. You wouldn't think that a Zen Buddhist monk would actually teach you how to fight, but it is it is such a phenomenal book. And I think there's one on like anger,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah, because right, those are the emotions that we often get, because we are human, and there's a way to harness that energy for good.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's so many good communities. I mean, you've got people, Spirit Rock Meditation Center in California does a great job, and IMS back east for people that are looking for resources for those things. I mean, the James Baraz has written a lot of great books. Like Awakening Joy was one of my favorites by him. And that kind of lays out like, you have like the anger book that teaches you kind of how to make friends with anger, right? And to recognize that anger can actually be a powerful tool, right? I mean, I like to say that, if you look at like David Hawkins' work on like letting go, right? He talks about, anger actually being a lot better than depression. It's like, because in depression, people withdraw and there's low energy for change, or at least with anger, there's energy. And the energy of anger can actually make you take action, which will lead to future results. And so if you look at like the hierarchy of vibrational hierarchy, like anger is actually a more productive and useful emotion than depression. And so it's really interesting how you can see that. And then also look at those higher level states, like in Awakening Joy, and say, okay, well, how do we now actively cultivate gratitude? How do we actively cultivate compassion? Which, that's what the four measurables are all about. It's what the Bodhisattva vows are all about. It's about cultivation of positive emotions while learning to befriend and be wise with the negatives.
I love that you love David Hawkins because I also love him too. And I remember when I read his book, when they were talking about those different levels of emotions, right in the middle between the negativity and the positive emotions was this one quality, and that quality was willingness.
Mm.
How important is willingness in being an entrepreneur?
It's funny. It's almost like you saying that is like, I mean, it's everything, right? I mean, there's no, it's like, it's the core foundation of any sustained change, right? Or even moving into any new territory. Without willingness, there's no movement. There's retrenchment. And so being willing to see, to do, to fail, to grow, like it's kind of that core mindset of openness that is what lets you take the next step.
Yeah, and that quality to me also feels like there's a spaciousness to it, rather than I will be doing something. It's the willingness to be able to be open, to be curious, to be able to explore is what that quality includes, because it's true. If there's something that we want, we have to be willing to do something that we've never done before. And sometimes that's scary.
Yeah, often.
Yeah. And I think it's even before we become brave, even before courage, we have to be willing to be brave, be willing to be courageous in order to take those steps, because it is no small feat, right? To be an entrepreneur, to be able to be always like, it's like a roller coaster, don't you think? And to have these tools is so key to be able to stay sane and be happy
Yeah,
and to flourish.
absolutely.
Yeah. So what's next for you this year? I mean, you've accomplished so much, in the decades that you've been an entrepreneur. What's next for you?
Wow. That's a great question. I want to go back to this one thing you said real quickly is just the roller coaster of being an entrepreneur. I just find that to be just such a great, metaphor for what it is, because there's so many times, right? You think you make the right decision, then it changes, then it becomes the right decision later, or, you hire somebody, you think it's going great for a while, then it goes sideways on you. And there's so many ups and downs, right? Everything's going well, then all of a sudden a customer goes out of business or they sell out, or, I mean, there's just so many things that can happen. So, being prepared for any of those shifts and turns it's just part of what life is. So it's great you say that. The what's next for me? I mean, we're keeping to grow our business. I mean, we're working on right now taking. Our goal is to get our business to be $500 million business in the next 10 years. In the next 3 years, we're trying to aim for $150 million. So we're trying to grow from a $80 million business in terms of our mattress company, the Diamond Mattress, to 150. And so a lot of investment. We're going to probably open another facility in Atlanta. We have 2 factories currently, one in California, one in Texas. And I started off, I'm a family-owned business. So it's like interesting even to think of myself as an entrepreneur, because I don't typically think of myself like that in a sense, because I took over a family business and then I've grown it 10 times over, close at least. And it's interesting to me because when I look at it, it's like, oh, well, yeah, I forgot about the real estate. I forgot about some of the other things that we've done, the property management company. It's like, I don't think about all those things that we also did along the way. They just it's interesting that you do certain things with intention, like growing our business, we've done with tons of intention. And then we've grown our real estate portfolio with a lot of intention, but the intention there was always to generate cash flow so that when we were not going to be, if anything ever happened with our core business, we had another business that had ongoing cash flow to support the family, support our lifestyle. And, today that, we're almost to a point now where we would have enough passive income coming in that if we didn't have to work, we could not. And so for me, it's just kind of continuing to get into a position where we can ultimately do what Robert Kiyosaki's talking about, which is have enough passive income coming in, have enough investments in place to where if you wanted to stop working and go to Europe for 3 months or for longer, you can. And that's really what we're working on to be our next thing.
Well, first of all, I absolutely believe that you're an entrepreneur, because I think that I don't know if people really know the difference between an entrepreneur and a business owner. An entrepreneur is someone who creates businesses and processes so that someone else can do them, right? They're innovative. That's exactly what you did with your business. You took a small business, a small mom and pop business, and you grew it to like $80 million. I mean, that was you. So I absolutely 100% believe that you're an entrepreneur. A business owner would be someone who has a dental practice, right? So they may not be innovative, but they're in the process of having customers, having clients. But I think you have been phenomenal, because I'm sure that your meditation and your mindfulness has allowed you to see your business 360, like in a holistic way.
Well, it's not me. I mean, it's thank goodness my team. We've been really fortunate. My sister, I mean, she is incredible. My dad taught me so much. I always like to say, none of us did it by ourselves. One of our core philosophies in our company, I tell people all the time, is ask for help. Because the truth is, asking for help isn't weakness, it's strength. Tell me anything you ever learned by yourself. Did you learn how to read by yourself? Did you learn how to do math by yourself? You discovered the Pythagorean theorem? Really? You figured out advanced calculus? No, I never figured out calculus. I learned calculus, but I can't do. I never would have learned algebra, right? I mean, I didn't invent Excel. I learned, I use it. I was taught it, and so I was really fortunate to have great mentors along the way to help coach and guide us. And I've been very fortunate and blessed to help be a part of a company that's been growing and to help lead that company. But yeah, I mean, that's it's one thing that I think earlier in my career I used to be like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Now as I've gotten older and hopefully a little wiser, it's like, wait a second, no, it takes a village, but it takes somebody to help inspire, coordinate, and be that person that's helping bring the pieces of the puzzle together. And I think that's really what's kind of been my unique role is, being that force that can kind of come in and help inspire, motivate, encourage, pick people up when they're down. And then also having, of course, the resources that, that's what ultimately our job is as leaders, right? Is to deploy the resources we have available to us and to make those hard decisions when it's like, well, somebody's got to decide what we're going to do. Are we going to spend this money here? We're going to spend this money there. We're going to hire this person. We're going to invest in this equipment. And at the end of the day, somebody's got to make those calls. And so I've been, fortunate to be in those seats and see what that looks like.
I think From all the podcasts that I've had, I think that is definitely a key to the difference between a good to a great entrepreneur, the ability to ask for help. 100%, because you have to have a certain type of vulnerability, right? And humility to be able to know that you don't have the answers. And I know that a lot of times that's where people get stuck, because as an entrepreneur, everyone's always looking at you for answers, right? And so you have that identity, like, I know everything, when you really know we really are making it up as it go along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's true. Like I got involved with YPO maybe 7, 8 years ago now. And it was when I finally hit a point where I was like, I need to surround myself with people that know more than me. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to go from a $30 million company to a $50 million company. We've gotten it where we got it. And, having surrounded myself, and all the next thing I know, I'm sitting in a room with guys that have Harvard MBAs that are running $500 million companies and talking to me about private equity and, funding and all this other stuff that I'd never even thought about, and EBITDA multiples. And I'm like, EBITDA multiple, like, what do you mean by EBITDA multiple? And you buy a business at a 3 EBITDA multiple, and then you add it to your incremental EBITDA, and your EBITDA, since it's at a 6, you instantly double the value of the EBITDA. So like they're doing incremental EBITDA buys, and I'm like, that's a whole different level of thinking that I never was exposed to as a family business. And so it kind of just changed our mindset on acquisitions, and it changed our mindset on why do we want to grow the business and how that can look. And so, yeah, surrounding yourself with good people and people that know more than you it's the key.
And the key to going from being an amateur business person slash entrepreneur to someone who's really a professional, right? And it's interesting because when you take a look at, sports, you've played, I'm sure, a ton of sports, right?
Yeah.
Growing up, right? There's that nuance, that you get with additional coaching.
Oh yeah. It's like when people ask me like, why do you do coaching or why do you get coaching? I'm like, did Kobe Bryant have a coach? Like, I was a big fan of Kobe Bryant. I think, I wish he would have. It's sad that, that he passed so early. I thought he would have done amazing things in the world, but he had a coach, right? So did Michael Jordan. So did any great player had a coach, right? Everybody has a coach to get better and to see their blind spots and to just get pushed. I like, when I'm trying to work out, we were hiking Machu Picchu a couple years back. And before we went to Machu Picchu, I hired a private trainer to help me prepare. And people would ask, like, why do you need to pay somebody to help you work out? And I'm like, well, because I show up, I work harder, I do things I otherwise wouldn't do, and I don't stop when I would have stopped. I'm like, so it's worth it for me to push myself beyond my limits and to get prepared. And, I'm out 14,000 feet hiking and no problem. I was ready, I was prepared. And, some of the people on our trip were having a real struggle. And I was like, this is great. I was having a great time. And that's all because prepared and hired good people to help me.
Nah, that is so cool. I also hired a video coach because, short form video marketing is so huge. And I hired someone for $250 an hour to sit down to figure out how to do these short videos, because otherwise, even though I own a digital agency, I wasn't going to do it by myself. So I hired a 27-year-old influencer to keep me accountable. And guess what? I kept on missing those meetings because it was one thing I did not want to do. I did not want to do video. I did not. And that young woman kept me accountable. So these coaches also, they don't have to be older than you, right? They can be any age.
No,
We
no,
can
one of
learn
my
from
teachers,
everyone.
yeah, one of my teachers, I love him, Alan Wallace. If you're looking for like a good, like, inspirational but technical book on Buddhism, like, he's go-to for me. But he was one of my professors in college, and I was having lunch with him not too long ago. I've kept in touch with him. He's a wonderful man. And one of the things he taught me, he's like, Shaun, they don't need to be an enlightened Buddha. They just need to be a little bit further along the path than you are. Anybody can teach you. You can teach for people ahead or behind, but really, if you're looking for a coach, it's like, as long as they're a little bit ahead, and you might catch up with them, and then you might surpass them at some point. And that's great, because there's different coaches for different phases of our life too. You're not supposed to just learn from necessarily one person forever. You're going to learn from somebody, so that the age is, like you said, age is irrelevant. In terms of video, she's a little further down the path than you are, and you can learn from her. And it's, good on you for, I really respect you for having like that kind of just open-mindedness to say, hey, sweet, I can learn from anybody. That's the key.
Well, also, I wanted to make sure that I had some type of monetary component to keep me in check.
Yeah. You got to pay
Right?
for it. Yeah, I agree. Like if it's too little sometimes, then actually you blow it off and you don't even care. Like sometimes there's got to be a little bit of pain for it.
A
Yeah,
little bit,
agreed.
And also there are a lot of people who are like, "Oh, I'll help you. I'll just teach you." But, they're also not accountable. They won't show up, because they know that there's no, quid pro quo.
Yeah, but there's a reciprocity, you know?
Yeah. So there's a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs, established entrepreneurs listening to the show. What type of advice would you give entrepreneurs in today's day and age in 2022?
Advice that I'd give an entrepreneur. Man, I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends on their situation. Like, I mean, I guess, I always want to ask more qualifying questions, really like, what do you mean by that? Like, like financial advice, leadership advice, like anything in particular?
Well, you've really flourished,
Mhm.
because there are a lot of people, just like you said, there's a lot of entrepreneurs who are divorced. There's a lot of entrepreneurs who are just struggling. They have a lot of money, they have a lot of revenue, they're growing their businesses, but really there's no happiness. So
Mhm.
maybe advice that way, like as an entrepreneur, how
Yeah,
can you
no,
be
I mean,
happy?
it doesn't, I mean, it's one, sometimes it's one of those, the advice is easier to give than to take, a little bit, right? Cause I mean, I think as an entrepreneur, like it feels like you are on 24/7, and creating those boundaries is difficult. And sometimes almost feels unnecessary. It feels like society sometimes tells you you're supposed to have certain boundaries that sometimes they're good and sometimes they're bad. Like, I don't mind working. It depends, right? Like, I don't mind working at different hours, like, because I'll take a half day off here to go be with my kids, and then okay, so I'll work a little bit on a Saturday morning, and that feels fine for me. I think what it really looks like is, to me, that how does it impacting, if if you have a family like I do, how's it impacting my family, right? And that when I start seeing my work, because I love working, I mean, I like it. I like what I do. So for me, it's fun. Like, my kids want to go play a video game for fun. Like, I'll go work. Like, I don't feel like bad or stressed or negative about my work. But, to break away from that, and recognize I'm still going to have the 150 emails to answer, that's kind of, I think, creating that kind of routine. So for me, I try to turn off my phone by 6 p.m. at night, you know, just try to get away. And, I do that I probably make that actually happen about 50% of the time, where it's like, just try to turn it off, right? And set it aside, know it's going to be there tomorrow in the morning. If I need to wake up extra early, I will, but I don't want to sacrifice that time with my kids. I think it's having a good morning routine, waking up, exercising. I exercise at least 3 or 4 times a week. This morning I was out jogging. I'll do, stretching, yoga, meditation. So I use a device. You may have heard of it before. Like, if anybody's out there and wants to
Heart
learn meditation,
math.
I think heart math. Yeah.
Is that
I have
heart
a heart
math? Yeah.
math device. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, this is actually one I'm giving as a gift to somebody, but it helps read your, it's a biofeedback. So it kind of gamifies meditation, so people can see results. And because one of the biggest things you hear about meditation is like, I'm not doing it right, I can't meditate, I don't know how to meditate, which is all just monkey mind. I mean, nobody knows how to meditate. You learn, and you just do just shit. It's just sitting down and doing it is half the battle, you know but this does kind of gamify it and makes it. And then there's like 400 published studies around it. I mean, it works. So I think having those morning routines is really huge. And then reading and constant drip of it, inspirational information. Zig Ziglar is one of my mentors and heroes. And when I think about Zig Ziglar, one thing he said, like, he has a book says about an audiobook that's really great. So I listened to his audiobook probably 3 times, called about how to stay motivated. And one of the things he said about motivation, he's like, motivation is like bathing. He's like, you don't just do it once. He's like, you bathe every day. He's like, you got to take in motivation every single day. He's like, that's the only way you're ever going to get there. And so I live by that. I've always got, an audio book going. When I'm running, I'm listening to audiobooks. When I'm in my car, I'm either talking on the phone or I'm listening to audiobooks. I'm not listening to the sports station. I'm listening to something that's inspirational or business oriented or something that's feeding my mind.
What are you listening to right now?
I think I'm listening to 3 or 4 different things right now. I'm listening to I have like a fun book right now I'm listening to, which is called Brave New World by Aldous Huxley.
Oh,
Like
yes.
a social commentary novel that I find to just be really insightful about, what a social structure can look like. I'm listening to a book called How to Be a Great Boss by Gino Wickman,
Oh, yes.
10X Rule by Grant Cardone. Just finished up some books by Patrick Lencioni. So
He's the
yeah,
best.
yeah, I like parables. I'm a big fan of
Oh,
parables. So
the five
it's
dysfunctions of the team. Oh, Just that if
Yeah.
people have not listened to that or read it, it is just, and the workbook, the field guide after that, like he's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I'm so impressed by your morning routine. I'm sure that there's more of it though, right?
No, that's about it. I mean, you got to keep it simple. I mean, I probably I probably meditate 4 to 5 days a week. It's not, it's not every day. It's just like, but the consistency and then learning to not beat yourself up over it. Okay, you miss a day. Great. Start again tomorrow. Right? Like just start again, start again, start again. And then what ends up happening actually is you'll do it for a while, then you'll stop, you'll fall off the wagon. It's just natural. You're gonna fall off the wagon. You're gonna start getting anxious again. You're gonna start getting frustrated again. You're gonna get irritable. You're like, I need to do something. You're gonna start meditating. Things are gonna start getting better. You're gonna start praying, right? I mean, for some people, prayer is a taboo word. It used to be for me, and I decided at one point, like, I'm gonna reclaim the word God back into my life. Like, there was a point in time for me where God became almost like a negative word to me because of some of the belief systems that I grew up with that I just didn't believe in later in life. And I was like, well, why am I letting people from when I was 16 years old control what this means to me? Because I know God means a lot to me. I know my spirit means a lot to me. And so as I've reclaimed prayer and meditation, like what you'll see is that path where you get onto the pathway, you're doing well, you're doing your routines, you fall off, you're frustrated, you're having negative experiences again, you start doing it, you start feeling better. And then after you see that routine for a while, you're like, wait, why am I ever stopping? Like, why am I stopping from doing that? Which I can put the data points together. And so now after 20 years of meditation, I'm like, wait, every period where I've stopped, it's led to next thing you know, I'm fighting with my wife. I'm more irritable. I'm not as present. Like I'm drinking more than I want to drink, And so it's just after I've seen that pattern enough times, I'm like, wait a second, wait, there's one common thread here. And when I keep those things going, I'm happier, I'm more motivated, I'm more centered. My family and friends are like me more. Like it's just if you can do something for 10 to 20 minutes a day that makes your whole life better, it's like, well, why wouldn't I do that? It's crazy.
You're like your own scientific experiment.
You are. I mean, it's true. Yeah, really. I mean, shit, that's what the biofeedback device does for us, right? It's like literally your own. We are all our own science experiment.
What's really interesting though, when you have these types of practices, because I started meditating pretty religiously in 2016. So it really helped me prepare for COVID, which I'm sure that it has probably helped you as well too. But there are times too when, a crisis happens, like there's a looming recession, that everyone is talking about. How do you go through a crisis?
Yeah, I mean, the recession's here. Like they're thinking it's looming. Well, it's here. It's actually already here.
Surprise.
It's yeah. We see it typically, before the media stays out, we see it. We're in the home furnishing sector. And so with mattresses and furniture, I mean, we started seeing it 3 months ago, 4 months ago, when housing slows, our sector gets hit first. And then, the reports and the metrics come out 6 months later that says, oh, but guess what? We're in a recession. It's like, yeah, we know. So yeah, we've been seeing that. And I don't even worry about recessions. Like that, it's not something economics. There's a great movie. It was on Netflix. I think about probably on Prime now called Zeitgeist. Have you ever heard of Zeitgeist?
No, not
It's
yet.
a really great film. The first half is kind of like an expose on religion that some people may like or not like. But the second half is an expose on the Federal Reserve banking system and our monetary system. So basically, they talk about fractional reserve banking and the fact that the Federal Reserve is it's an independent corporation. It's not part of the government, and it loans money to the government at an interest rate that then gets loaned back to the banks. And the banks have this thing that's called a fractional reserve banking system where they have to keep a certain percentage for simple math, we'll call it 10%, and they can loan out 90. Well, once they loan that out, that money goes to Chase. Somebody buys a house, that money goes to Chase. Well, Chase takes that $90 and they loan out $89. And the pattern goes on to where every like $100 that gets created gets loaned out to be 1,000. And there's interest on every part of that all along the chain. And so what it ultimately creates is a boom and bust economy. Like we live in the fabric of the system is to have a boom and bust cycle. And as I discovered that and started reading Federal Reserve papers and looking at it, I was like, wait, if I live, it doesn't matter what you think about the game. That's just the structure. So either play the game or get beat up by it. But this is the nature of it. We're going to have 3 to 5 buy opportunities in our lifetime. Recessions are buy opportunities if you're prepared, right? So, I was talking to some of my friends a couple months back. I was like, man, I think I want to get my cash into the markets. And they're like, wait, it's not buy time yet. Like buy time's coming. And so recessions, you can see them in two perspectives. I mean, for business, it can be bad, but also for investing, it can be good. And it's a righting of the ship, right? It's a balancing act. You're balancing out, you have hyperinflation where they're printing tons of money. And of course, there's going to come in a recessionary period. It's what needs to happen. So that's why, like, in my family, I've always taught my sister and I, they're like, be ready to lose 40% of your business overnight and keep making money. Don't overextend yourself. Make sure you're secure. You're not, over leveraging on debt. You're not over leveraging on your overhead expenses. Like, be ready to retrench. And I mean, that does tamper down on growth. The unimpeded growth cycles, like we're not going to be a part of that, but we're having more steady growth, measured growth. And then in 2008, like, we don't have stress. We don't worry about it because we know I can lose 30-40% of my business. I'll shrink up, I'll have to do some layoffs. I'll have to, right size our organization, but we were profitable the entire time, and then when other people are struggling, now that creates opportunities for us. So it's like, well, a recession can be great for me because the guys that are on the edge, they get pushed off the edge and they're gone. Meanwhile, if we create financial security and financial stability in our business, we're ready to attack. And so for
Or
me, a
buy
recession,
them,
or
right?
buy,
Yeah.
acquire,
Or
merge.
acquire.
I mean, it creates opportunity for us.
Yeah, no,
Sorry,
it's so
I
it's
get a
so
little excited
exciting.
about that stuff. But yeah, I'm like, recessions can be great.
Well, I've been through three recessions, and so I think after the third one, it's after a while you're just like, oh, this is just right? Like
It's just
the
a
roller
cycle.
coaster, right?
Yeah.
We're like, we're having fun. Here we go.
Yeah, it's going
Yeah.
down, it's going back up. Like, don't get me wrong, it can be really painful. I mean, layoffs can be painful for a lot of people. I mean, I don't want to belittle or talk negative about the negative experiences and consequences of a recession, which can be significant. A lot of people's wealth will be, tarnished and hurt. But, if you look at what the system is and you prepare yourself for it, it can be not so bad. So.
You know what has really helped me, especially when there are times when I've had to lay off people, is not to feel sorry for them, but to look at them with compassion, with true compassion, which is they're a hero, whole and complete. What do you
mm.
think about that?
I think it's great. I mean, at the end of the day, like, there's market forces, and you can try to let your feelings of, get in the way of what just needs to happen and thinking that people can't take care of themselves. And that's that concept, a hero, whole and complete. Like, if this person is a whole complete person, I'm going to be fair. Severances or whatever employment assistance we can provide. And, we try to give them references and we try to help them get another job. And if they're whole and complete, they're going to be able to go and make their way in the world. And they do. I mean, people do. I haven't found anybody that we've ever had to let go of that didn't go find another job. I mean, unless they didn't want one. But they've all gone on, and in many cases have turned out to be better because they weren't maybe happy where we were, or they had to then become creative and find a new avenue for themselves. And so it can also be a good thing for people that are stuck in a rut.
I'm so impressed by you because you are so young and so wise and flourishing. And I'm so glad that we got connected. We have a mutual friend, Dr. Marie Nemeth,
Mm.
and I'm so glad that she introduced us because everyone should be like Shaun.
Oh, please. Everybody should be like you, Kalika. We love you. You got such a good way about you. Your kindness, your compassion shows through, and you always have a sense of calmness. I aspire for that.
We have that mindfulness meditation. Did I tell you? Oh, no, I didn't tell you because it just happened yesterday. I got accepted to the mindfulness meditation teacher program at UC Berkeley.
Oh, congratulations. That's huge.
Yes.
Is it online
Yes.
or do you go in person?
It's connected with Spirit Rock, so Jack Cornfield.
Mm.
So there will be some sessions that will be in person, but the majority of it, thank goodness, because of COVID, right? Like I would have had to fly up there each time, but it'll be online. Maybe
That's
you can join.
fantastic.
It starts
Hey,
in
let me
February
know.
next year.
Okay, if I was invited, I would seriously consider it. Yeah. I don't know how that all works, but I would.
I'll send you the link. It was
Yeah.
between that and the UCLA program, and I chose Spirit Rock. So
Yeah, I love it.
we
I
both
mean,
went to,
we both stayed there and both done retreats there, and yeah, it's a special place.
yes. I know silent retreats help. What was your experience like at a silent retreat?
Oh, well, yeah, I've done quite a few, and every time they've been great. My last one I did for my 40th birthday. My 40th birthday happened to land on 2020, which was COVID year, right? So wasn't going to have a big 40th birthday bash, and instead I did a 7-day silent retreat with a couple friends. And so we went up to the mountains and did our own silent meditation retreat. And it was interesting. It'd been a number of years since I'd done a silent retreat, and I was wondering, I'm like, am I still going to like this? Is this still something that I'm going to be into? Like, this is going to be valuable for me. And I think the biggest takeaway I had was like, yeah, Yes, it is. I still like it. We were meditating 11 to 12 hours a day, waking up 6 a.m., going to bed at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. and all in silence. And it was just really invigorating. And you can see how the practice works and how the practice will get you where you want to go. Now, the practice we were doing was a noting practice. So interestingly, in that tradition, which is like the Mahi Sayadaw tradition, as you're doing noting practice, like your mind will get more subtle and you'll start noticing things like intentions and the, conditionality, the origination, 12 dependent causalities. But, it's interesting to me because like that specific practice, I recognize it's like you almost need like 3 months to really get to do it all the way through. And so that's one of my aspirations. Like what's next is one day I want to be able to do more sustained, longer practices to really let that mind completely settle. And so it's interesting because, now today, like I don't do noting practice when I'm at home. Typically, I'll do different kinds of practices because I think there's different environments for different practices and you get different benefits out of them. So it'd be interesting to hear what you guys learn at that program because, from the practical nature of, the everyday 10 to 15 minutes or 30-minute practices to, when you're on retreat, you can do different kinds of practices because sometimes they build on each other over the period of time.
Yeah, last time I went, it was Metta,
Mm,
the Metta loving kindness, and also Qigong at Spirit
yeah.
Rock. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. See, meta is so great because you can do meta anytime. Meta, you
anytime.
can do it while you're walking around. You can do while you're sitting for 5 minutes. You can do it when you're parking your car before you walk into work. I mean, so meta is a super practical, heart opening, great practice.
Why don't you tell people what it is?
Meta is loving. It's a loving kindness practice. You start off by wishing well for people you love. So you want to start with something that's easy. So in certain traditions you visualize, in certain traditions you don't visualize. Some just use a word. Things like may you be healthy and well, may you be safe, may you be loved. And you send them, a meta. In the Tibetan tradition, they'll tend to visualize like white light radiating out from the heart, which is kind of what I prefer is to visualize energy flow, a giving of energy where you're breathing in kind of cyclically, breathing in and moving, filling your body and pushing out to others. And so you'll generate a loved one typically to kind of get the juices flowing, so to speak. And then after the juices are flowing and you're feeling that connectedness, then you can bring up, yourself, visualize yourself as a child, visualize that little boy or little girl inside of you, the challenges, the fears they had, the love they had, the joy, and how much you would want for that little one, as they're going through the ups and downs of their daily life. And so building that compassion, that loving kindness for oneself. Then you'll go to a neutral party. You might do it for somebody you don't know, the cashier at the check register. Can I keep that loving kindness feeling? Can I keep that flow going towards those that I don't know? And then you'll start bringing in difficult people that might be challenging for you, people that might be somewhat difficult. And can I start learning to see that they too have fears? They too have goals, dreams, and the desire to make a difference. They too deserve dignity and respect. They too live on this earth and have all the same challenges all of us have, even if they're difficult for me. They're loved by their loved ones. In the Tibetan tradition, they said like envision everybody like they were your mother. And so if you believe in reincarnation, like they say, like everybody was my mother at one point in time. And so that's a symbolism for them, that opens the heart to say, hey, at one time you could have been caring for me, like my mother cared for me. And so then being able to send it out, then progressively working towards more difficult people to build compassion. And really it's like building a muscle, right? Meta can become a muscle that you build. And like any muscle, you can build it. And if you stop building that muscle can go away. And so that's one of the tricks of meditation. People think that they're going to do it once and it's like, oh, well, I don't get it. Well, no, that's not the way it works. It's like, you don't go to the gym one day and like lift and be like, oh, my muscles are never going to go down. It's like, no, you got to consistently exercise those muscles to maintain them over time.
But what I love about meditation is that you will still you'll be able to get into it easier, sort of like riding a bike,
Oh yeah,
right?
agreed.
Once
100%.
you have the skills, right? That's why even you were like, oh, I haven't done this for a long time, like the noting practice, you were able to get into it because of your past
Yeah. You
practices.
drop in, you
Yeah,
drop right back in. Yeah.
yeah.
It's the speed to drop in is way faster. So yeah, I mean, you don't lose it. I guess you're right. You don't lose the muscle altogether, but there's a sustainment there. You gotta sustain your practices. Um,
Yes,
and
for
you want
sure.
to, but absolutely, especially with longer retreats, you find that, like if you've done longer retreats and you go back to a retreat, you'll find you'll get back to the last time you were there way quicker. And it's like, oh wait, it took me 5-day retreat to get to that point before, and now it took me one day or a day and a half, and you're back, and then you're building on. And so yeah, that's always been a really cool experience when you do that.
Yes. And the idea of deliberate practice, not just like mindless practice. It's deliberate with that intention in place as well. See, you see everyone? This is how you become whole and complete meditation.
I know, it's funny, like, I've had people tell me, like, "There's other ways. Meditation is not the only way," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sure there are other ways. There are other ways." I'm like, I just don't know them, like, like, I just don't know of it, I mean, I'm sure there might be, but, you know, I couldn't tell you what it is. I mean, because meditation, prayer, to me, they're somewhat synonymous. There's different forms of each, but it's like saying, like, you're gonna get to know God without praying. Really? Like,
Yeah.
how? Tell me
Yeah.
how. Meditation is a form of prayer. I mean, it's just different vernacular, in my opinion. Now,
Yeah.
there's intercession praying for something. There's different kinds of prayer, just like there's different kinds of meditation. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for spending all this wonderful time. I know that you're running several businesses, you're an investor, family person, and it was really such a joy to have this fantastic conversation with you. And what's the best way for people to get in contact with you? Let's say they want a coach or some advice.
Well, I happen to have this wonderful person that's helping me build a website that will be live fairly soon. I forget, I think we decided, what was it, S Pennington or ShaunPennington.com. So eventually a website, but I'm on LinkedIn, and you can always reach out through our website, diamondmattress.com, and ask for me to send a message through there. But yeah, eventually I'll have a website put up, so we can maybe share that at that point. And then, it'll be, yeah, LinkedIn is a great resource too.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kalika. Have a wonderful day.